EPIC2024. We got the one, the only, the legend, Weldon Long. Woo, man, I am super excited to be at EPIC out here in Anaheim, and we are live on the other side of the camera. And we got, Weldon Long and Weldon Wally. First off, I got to say, man, you being my mentor, to see you on stage, to emceeing such a high caliber event, right? Absolutely amazing. What are your thoughts of the event so far, 2024?
Well, Jdub, let me just first say, I love you, man. And my thoughts here about EGA. EGA does a fantastic job of combining educational, informational stuff. Later this afternoon, we're going to have some just entertainment stuff, and they do such a nice blend. But man, the speakers, Robert Irvine this morning, was absolutely like just one of the most fascinating conversations that you can have. You think this guy is a celebrity. He's on television. He's the chef. He's this, he's that. Guy was in the Royal Navy as a special forces guy. His first boss was, who at the time was a prince, who is now the King of England, right? And he's worked for so many large organizations. The amount of contribution and service he provides around the world, it's remarkable. The guy's just a really dynamic dude.
And I got to say, I've been dreaming of this moment for 5 years to be a part of EPIC here at EGIA, right? And here it is, to be a part of the event, to be podcasting live.
We're glad to have you, Jdub.
Here we are. Not only that, we got something to talk about right here. We got Mr. Sean Ritchie with Breezy.
Dude, whippersnapper comes to mind. These are the smart financial guys that probably make money off our credit card bills. I don't know. I mean, these are the smart guys.
Yeah, and
Wally flatters me, but yeah, I accept the compliment from a Titan like Wally.
No, absolutely, right. Anytime he says something, you kind of just got to roll with the punches, exactly. And who knows what Wally's gonna say or rolls out of his tongue. But Sean, let me ask you, what is your story of wanting to do this with the trades of the industry? Like, what is it that you found that makes Breezy such an amazing CRM program?
Yeah, great question, Jason. And, to follow up on Weldon, like, just flattered to be here between you two. Really cool experience for me and great event. But yeah, my background, I grew up around the trades a bit. My dad ran a home building company when I was a kid. My grandfather ran the commercial division of a landscaping company in DC. And then my first real job was working for a masonry shop. So worked there for about 4 years in high school and college. And I had an absolute blast. I just started doing like basic data entry, and then wound up helping them with job costing, buying a truck to help save money on shipping, dispatch, takeoffs, everything. I got a huge kick out of being 19 years old, not really knowing what the hell I was doing, but, having an impact on a real business, right? Separately, in college, fell in love with like the tech scene, the startup scene. I worked at an incubator in Nashville, for like a fantasy football startup, and just like really fell in love with, like, it was just a contagious energy. I'd go there when I wasn't even interning there, and just like be around entrepreneurs, right? And trying to learn from them, like guys that are just like gritting their way to finding early customers, to finding product market fit, right? Like I got such a kick out of that. So coming out of school, I joined a company called Alpha Sites, tech startup. We were 20 people in the US. We were going after the research space, and that industry exploded, right? We were like finding interesting people to advise our financial clients on their investments, right? Helping them, make savvier investments, make more money off their investments. And the work itself was fascinating, right? And growing the team, we went from 20 people. I think my title was analyst, right? To over 1,000 in 8 years. Wow. I wound up running our private equity and venture capital group for the last 4 years there, and just got to grow like huge teams and all these young people and just like coach them up. And obviously I'm still on the young side. So, coaching the younger people on like, here's how you run a team. Here's how you can become just dynamite sales contributor, right? That was awesome. And that's my background, is like competitive family, youngest of 2 boys, everything. I always had a chip on my shoulder, undersized, dealing with my big brother, playing sports and all.
I get it. Trust me. I got an older brother too. So how did you get introduced to Mr. Weldon Long Wally over here?
Yeah, great question. So, after growing Alpha Sites for 8 years, kind of decided like I wanted to replicate that success, but frankly around an industry where I was a bit more excited to help the key stakeholder. You know, working with financial institutions was fascinating. I didn't care so much about making a huge financial institution like slightly more money.
Yeah.
What I did care about was like, can we find a customer where we can apply our software skill set, our customer success skill set, and marry it with like industry expertise and have a real impact on somebody's business and somebody's life, right? So we looked at all these industries, kept coming back to HVAC because, you know, we were talking to business owners and we just kept hearing the same refrain, which was, look, there's a lot of software options out there, but it feels like they're in the third inning.
Yeah.
You know, helps me run my jobs better, not really specific to my business. And I'm still hitting this glass ceiling where I can't get from 3 million to 5 million in revenue, right?
Yeah.
So we're like, all right, that's an opportunity. We can help remove constraints. That's what good software does, right? But, you know, the first thing we acknowledge, everybody here can do the math. I'm new to the industry, right? I like to think I'm humble enough to know where my knowledge stops. And that stops when it comes to like HVAC expertise.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did was I just started doggedly pursuing guys like Weldon, Gary Elix, Brian Stack from ACA, right? Like all these industry titans. And I was like, let's marry our skill sets, right? We can build great software. We can create an amazing onboarding experience, customer support, but I need you guys to look at it, poke holes in it, and tell us where we're idiots.
Yeah. Well,
right?
Sean, let me ask you a question. You know, you're reaching out to some heavy hitters in the trades, right? And to do something like that is very uncomfortable. And, you know, a lot of people watching on the podcast and behind the cameras, what I find them to do is they're fearful to put themselves in uncomfortable situations, right? And one thing that maybe I want to talk about to you is, you know, this is one of those opportunities that you were able to put yourself in that situation and the outcome, right? Yeah. And then Wally, real quick with you and Gary Elix, you guys sit on the board of this. When he came and approached you with this, what was it really that like drove the attention?
Yeah, great question, Dub. And you know, when the guys first reached out and said we want, you know, we're starting another the startup, the CRM, I'm like, another CRM. That's just what the industry needs, is like an 85th CRM. Yeah. But as I started paying attention and listening, what jumped out in talking to Sean and Ryan was that this is for the HVAC industry. It's not for services in general, right? It's not for the roofer, for the window guy, for the siding guy. It's for the heating and air conditioning guy. And that really piqued my interest because we've all used all the major softwares out there and they're all great and they do their thing. Customer service sucks, but you know, they accomplish their purpose. I can take my phone right now and see what's going on in my company. But I love the idea it was for HVAC only. But then as I got to know these guys, because they're youngsters, you know, but I started realizing the success they had in their background, their track record is really remarkable given the fact that they're so young. And their ability to raise money, which is huge, right? You got to be able to raise money to fund the development on these types of things. But the thing that I've been blown away with is the responsiveness. When they come to us and they say, what do we need? And we say, well, we need to do this, this, and this. Like they focus and they execute, they get the shit done. And that's been extremely impressive to me from a business perspective in general, that they are building this thing and have built it and continue to refine it. I mean, they're all, you know, there's never any. I mean, Tiger Woods is still working on his swing, right? So they're forever working on software and refining it. But to me, the execution has been amazing. The responsiveness has been amazing. But I think the most important thing for our industry is that it is for us. It's not for services, residential services in general. It's for us. And I think that's really important.
You know, Sean, something that I think is very important to talk about, you know, is this is really the reveal for Breezy, right? Like you're taking down the curtains today and you're saying, hey, this is what it is. How important is it for you to be here at EPIC?
I think it's the perfect launching pad, right? I think the event itself is amazing because it combines education with like networking with great people. And I think what I've found is so many people have great designs on actually having a positive impact on the industry, right? Like almost evolving or modernizing the way companies are operating. And that's exactly what we're about, right? So I think in our mind, you know, we've been operating in stealth mode for a while. There's some strategic benefits to doing so and working closely with our advisors and our early customers. But, you know, when we're thinking about, oh, it's time to come out of that and actually start aggressively going to market, I couldn't think of a better spot to do it than at EPIC, you know, headlined by Weldon and Gary and you, Jason, and all these, you know, great people.
Yeah. Doing your research on some of your competitors and everything like that, what do you feel like the missing link of the chain was?
Yeah, great question. So essentially, I think our first differentiator is like we listen, right? I know that it might sound cliche or corny, but like that is our superpower. Like we sit down and listen to our customers, and then they are mind blown that we'll turn around a product development, like a new feature, in a couple of hours in some cases, or a couple of weeks in others, right?
I want to highly stress this for everyone that's listening out in the crowd and behind the cameras and everything. I get to hear the horror stories, and Wally gets to hear the horror stories of different CRM programs, some big people out there, big companies. And the biggest thing that I always hear the lack of the different softwares is the customer service, how fast they are for responsive time, right? So the fact that you all are able to do that and create that overall customer experience, right? And that's something that I really find is something that's important, is really the business will come, right? But what's the customer relationship and what are you doing for that client on the front end? And then also the onboarding, and just not the onboarding, right? But the whole after onboarding part, when there's issues and uploading the software and everything like that.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, everybody's got a tidy sales pitch when you haven't signed yet or when you're still onboarding, right? I think you see a company's true colors when, you've been on for a couple months, you're in the trenches, and that's where we take pride, right? Like every single, customer has live chat with our team. The whole team receives that and hops on it in a couple minutes. If they don't, we have issues, right? All my clients have my personal cell phone number. I'm still onboarding in person. So I think the personal touch is irreplaceable, and that's a huge competitive edge. I think the second one is there are some constraints when we look at the industry writ large, right? There are some constraints to growth. Like you hear a lot of stories like, yeah, I've been at 1.5 million for a few years. I'm trying to get to 3, but I don't know how to get there. I haven't been able to get there.
Yeah.
Software is not going to do that for you, right? But what it can do is remove some of those constraints. And so, some of our core features are like, why don't we just supercharge your membership program with advice, right? With hosting on our platform, with easy scheduling. So now all of a sudden you're not waiting for the phone to ring in the off season. Your schedule's full, right? Or how can we, instill good habits and reinforce like a great sales pipeline with sales follow-up, a Weldon original, right? In order to gas up your sales conversions, things like that are maybe holding people back because what got you here won't get you there. And I think that's what's missing. It's not like, slightly better, dispatch scheduling tool. To Weldon's point, there's a million of those out there. Yeah. That's what we're trying to rally around. And we do that with software, and we do that with credible partners that can also advise our clients and fill in the gaps where we can.
What I would say too, Dub, is that one of the most impressive things I've noticed about Sean and his team is that they're not trying to overreach. People come into this industry, they want to be everything to everybody. They want to promise the world. As Sean said, people, they got the words in the sales pitch. That's easy. That's the easy part. What they're not trying to do is to overreach. They're staying in their lane. They're, keeping the reins in front of them, and they're doing this thing methodically. And that's a big difference, right? Because there's nothing worse, and I'm speaking for contractors out there, and I'm talking for me as a contracting company that runs it every single day in the trenches. There's nothing worse than overpromising and under-delivering. And I will tell you, without fail, without exception, every software I've ever used has overpromised and under-delivered. It's just, and of course, we end up using what we get and we deal with it, and it's better than nothing. But what Sean and Ryan have done is they have not overreached. They're staying within themselves. They're not getting out ahead of their funding. They're not getting out ahead of their programming. They're delivering the goods. And that's what's been so impressive. And you mentioned that Gary Alex and myself are on the advisory board and just guiding this thing from a contractor perspective. They're not calling us for technical. Well, maybe Gary, because Gary's a pretty technical guy, but they're not reaching out to us because, hey, what, technical thing, what like XO goes here, whatever. It's like from a contractor's perspective, a user's perspective. And they're taking care of that, and they're not getting out and saying, we'll come back to that later. They're taking care of things systematically.
I love it. I love it. Real quick, Sean, what does the onboarding process look like, for someone that might want to reach out and do the onboarding?
Yeah, great question, Jason. So we've tried to take what's usually a painful process and flip it on its head and be like, what would this look like if it were actually beneficial and not as painful? So myself and my co-founder still onboard, almost all our clients personally. It's usually a 4-week process for people to be like absolutely flying, but we can have them completely up and running usually within 7 to 10 days. And from what I've seen, that's probably like 3 to 6 weeks faster than what's usually going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, I absolutely love it. Well, you're going to be jumping on stage here and seeing the rest of the event. You got some cool people that you're going to be interviewing. One of them tomorrow, Mr. Deion Sanders. How excited are you about having him on stage? What question? Let's get a behind the scenes real quick. Let us know one question that I know you wrote down in your book that you're going to ask him.
Well, number one, I should tell you, when they told me I was interviewing, I peed my pants. I was pretty excited.
I believe that.
Look, like most of us out here in this room, in this audience of 1,000 people here, I'm a Deion Sanders fan, right? Now, I didn't like him so much when he came in the league because the Atlanta Falcons drafted Deion, and I'm a Saints fan. I grew up in South Louisiana, so we hate the Falcons and we hated Deion. But Deion Sanders is the kind of person you cannot help but love. He's infectious with his personality, his smile, his positivity, his work ethic, his discipline. It's amazing. And of course, being in Colorado the last 35 years, my son is Colorado, a CU alum. So we want to just come in the state and do what he's done for CU. What he did at Jackson State was remarkable. But the biggest question I have to ask him, and I got to get permission to ask it tomorrow, about the best athlete. I saw an interview he did several years ago about the best athlete he's ever met. Was it Bo Jackson? Who was the best athlete he's ever met? And it was a crack addict from his neighborhood when he was a kid, right? That could smoke crack and then run and play ball all day.
Yeah.
And I don't know if his handlers will let me ask that question, but I'm hoping I get some insight on what made that guy such a great athlete.
Because
apparently
forgiveness later.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know. I got to keep my job here. But it's not conditioning. It's apparently tolerance is what really makes a great athlete, apparently. So I'm looking forward to talk honestly about recruiting. Some of the things he's done with recruiting, whereas a lot of people looked at the portal. Nick Saban, for example, one of the greatest, probably the greatest college football coach ever, one of the, maybe next to Bear Bryant. The portal ran him out of the college ranking, the college coaching business. He quit, right? Deion looks at it as an opportunity. He's building the CU team through the portal. So it's interesting to me how one guy can look at something as a challenge, as a threat. Another guy looks at it as an opportunity. And that, to me, is what makes Deion Sanders special. I can't wait to meet him. I can't wait to interview him. I think he's going to set this room on fire.
Absolutely. I'm super excited to see what comes the next 2 days. First off, I got to say I'm super excited. EPIC2024. Sean, Wally, thank you for being a part of the event. As well as tomorrow, we'll be podcasting at 8 a.m. with Drew Cameron dropping some bombs. So until next time, y'all, take care.
Good job, JM. Good job.